Afternoon, everyone. Let's keep the traffic flowing smoothly today.
Yes, officer, no problem at all.
Thank you. Safe driving to you all.
My wonderful Sisi Nana family. Come closer, come closer. Another interesting story is here again. Today, we're going to be talking about a beautiful policewoman. Her name is Alero. I need you guys to really put your ears to the ground so that you get to meet this lady. Alero stood at the middle of the busy junction just as the morning sun climbed higher, warming the tarred road beneath her boots. She had always imagined how stories of everyday people deserved to be heard. She always believed that if people listened closely, even traffic noise carried lessons. Alero hoped anyone listening would like the story, share it, subscribe, and drop their thoughts somewhere it could be seen. That is the comment section. Alero lifted up her hand again, firm but calm, stopping a speeding bus with a simple gesture that carried authority without anger. She was 28 years old, tall, graceful, and known across that stretch of the city for her gentle strength. Her police uniform always sat neatly on her body. Not flashy, not careless, just clean and smart. When she smiled, drivers slowed down without argument. When she frowned, even the most stubborn conductor adjusted quickly. It was not fear that controlled them. It was respect. Every morning, bus conductors leaned out of their doors and greeted her loudly, calling her Mama, not because she was old, but because in their world, Mama meant someone who cared enough to correct you without shame. She learned traffic work the hard way, not from textbooks alone, but from standing for hours under sun and rain, listening to excuses, stories, insults, and sometimes confessions. One driver once cried in front of her, explaining how drink almost ruined his life. She did not shout. She told him quietly, Oga, road no be your enemy. Your choice fit be. He never drove drunk again. Stories like that followed her like footprints on sand. Alero grew up partly in the village and partly in the city. Her grandmother taught her greetings and patience. Her mother taught her boldness and neatness. The city taught her speed, while the village taught her timing. That balance showed in how she walked. When traffic jam built up and tempers rose, she did not rush like others. She paused, assessed, then acted. Drivers noticed, conductors noticed, even street traders noticed. Everyone joked that when Alero was on duty, even horn sounds reduced. She laughed when she heard it, telling herself it was just talk. But deep down, she felt proud of herself and her efforts. She was strict about drinking and driving, not in a loud way, but firm enough that drivers felt ashamed to lie. She explained rules like she was teaching younger siblings. If you drink and drive, you don't only risk your life, you risk the life of the woman selling oranges by the road. You risk that child crossing on their school uniforms. Some rolled their eyes, some listened. Many remembered her words long after leaving the junction. Every day, she met the same faces. There was Musa, the tank driver, who always brought her fried or roasted granules. There was Chinedu, the conductor, who joked too much but followed rules. There was Mama Rose, who sold water and prayed for her safety daily. These small relationships built a quiet family on the road. Alero noticed when someone was absent. She asked questions. She actually cared. That was why people defended her even when she was not there. But the city, I mean Lagos City, was not the village. Respect attracted eyes. Eyes attracted envy. Some fellow officers whispered that she was doing too much. That traffic work was not about smiling. That Alero smiled too much. That she was seeking attention. She heard these things and kept quiet. Her grandmother's voice often echoed in her head, reminding her that silence was not weakness. It was strength waiting for time. One afternoon, a black convoy slowed at the junction. Sirens were blaring. Windows rolled up. Still, something about the cars made everyone strengthen. Alero did not panic. She cleared the road smoothly, raised her hand at the right time, and nodded slightly. Inside one of those cars, a man watched closely. He had seen many officers. This one was different. She did not beg. She did not abuse power. She simply did her work efficiently. That moment passed, but it planted a seed. Alero returned to her routine, unaware. She helped a broken down bus push to the side. She warned a young rider gently. She laughed with conductors during light traffic. She did not know that her name would soon leave that junction and enter places she had never imagined. As evening approached, traffic eased. She wiped sweat from her forehead and took a deep breath. It was another day done honestly and successfully. She did not chase praise. She only believed that doing right, even when nobody was watching, mattered. Somewhere between the city noise and her village lessons, Alera stood firm, unaware that her simple kindness was already changing the direction of her life. I hope you are still enjoying the story and you're listening. The news reached Alero on a morning that looked like every other morning. The sky was dull, traffic was already building, and the bus conductor was arguing loudly about change. She raised her hand, settled the matter calmly, and returned to directing vehicles. Nothing in the air suggested that her life was about to shift. Then a patrol bike stopped beside her, and an officer leaned close and said her name in a low voice, like it carried weight. She listened, nodded once, and continued her work until her shift ended, even though her heart was beating faster than usual. Later that day, she stood in a hall she had only seen on television. The ceiling was high, the lights were bright, and the chairs were arranged with care. Alero felt small in her uniform, but she stood straight. When her name was called, a quiet murmur passed through the room. Some clapped out of curiosity, others clapped because they already knew her. The governor spoke about discipline, about service, about quality character, about officers who remembered that power was for protection, not pride. Then he mentioned a young policewoman who had turned a busy junction into a place of order and respect. He called her name again. This time, the applause was louder. She walked to the stage slowly but majestically. She was not afraid. She wanted to breathe in the moment. Her promotion was announced clearly. A salary increase followed. Then came the car, shining under the lights like something from a dream. Cameras flashed. Alero smiled, but not too wide. Her mother's voice echoed in her mind, reminding her that joy should not erase humility. When she was asked to speak to the youths, her hand shook slightly, but her voice stayed steady. She talked about patience, she talked about choices, she talked about the road as a mirror of life, where one wrong move could affect many. She did not use big words. She spoke like she spoke to drivers every day. The hall was quiet when she finished. That silence felt heavier than applause. When clapping finally came, it sounded honest. After that day, her junction was no longer just a junction. People came to see her. Some came to greet, some came to record videos for their online viewers. Drivers who once joked now greeted more carefully. Conductors adjusted their shirts before waving. Even those who used to argue now complied quickly. Respect had shifted slightly, becoming mixed with fear and expectation. Alero noticed it immediately. It made her uncomfortable. Colleagues treated her differently too. Some smiled wilder than before. Some avoided her eyes. Some suddenly remembered old favors. She responded the same way she always had, with politeness and distance. She refused to sit in the car during duty hours. She stayed on the road. She told herself that titles did not change purpose, but change crept in quietly. One driver whispered that she was now too big for the road. Another said she would soon leave them all. Some conductors stopped joking, afraid their words might be misread. The small family she had built began to shift, like sand under slow water. She felt it and wondered if success always came with loss. One evening, As traffic slowed, Musa, the tanker driver, did not bring granuts. He only waved briefly and drove on. Chinedu greeted her without his usual joke. Mama Rose sold water silently. Alero smiled, but inside something felt off. She asked herself if promotion had built a wall she never asked for. At home, she sat alone, staring at her new car keys. She thought of her village, where success was shared quietly, not announced loudly. She wondered how to remain the same Alero when everyone else now expected someone different. The city lights outside her window blinked the questions without answers. She knew the road ahead would not be as smooth as the one she controlled daily. The change did not announce itself loudly. It arrived through looks that stayed a second too long, greetings that felt forced, and rules suddenly remembered only when Alero was around. On the surface, everything looked fine. Traffic still moved, orders were obeyed, salutes were given, but underneath, something had shifted and Alero felt it each time she stepped on the road. Some drivers now smiled too hard, laughing at jokes she did not make. Others avoided her lane completely, choosing longer routes just to escape her presence. A few conductors began to whisper when she passed, stopping abruptly when she turned. She pretended not to notice all these, but her ears caught fragments. Words like special, favored, and teacher's pet floated around. None of them were said to her face. At the station, things were worse. A senior officer once joked loudly that Alero's smile had taken her further than hard work ever could. Laughter followed, thin and uncomfortable. She smiled politely and said nothing. Another colleague reminded her sharply that promotion did not mean perfection. Alero nodded respectfully, even though the words cut deeper than they were meant to. Then mistakes began to appear, small ones at first. A missing report, a wrong time written down, a complaint from a driver claiming she insulted him. Each issue was minor, easily explained, but they came too often to be coincidence. Alero started keeping her own records carefully, writing things down twice, replaying conversations in her head at night. She asked herself if she had unknowingly offended someone. She asked herself if kindness could be mistaken for weakness. On the road, the behavior of some drivers changed. One afternoon, a bus sped past her signal deliberately. When she stopped it, the driver smirked and said, "Madam, you are too gentle. You can't stop everyone." His words drew laughter from passengers. She corrected him calmly and fined him according to the rules. As the bus drove off, she felt eyes on her back, heavy with judgment. If eyes could kill, Alero would have been dead. Chinedu, the conductor who once joked freely, finally spoke up one evening. He waited until traffic eased and leaned close. He told her quietly that some drivers believed she was reporting them secretly. He said some officers encouraged the rumor, saying it would keep drivers in line. Alero felt her chest tighten. She had never done such a thing. She thanked him for telling her and stood silently for a long time after he left. That night, she did not sleep well. Her mind replayed every interaction, every smile, every warning she had given. She wondered how easily truth could be twisted. In the village, rumors traveled slowly and were corrected face to face. In the city, they spread fast and hid behind noise. The tension grew. A group of drivers organized themselves, refusing to follow her signals strictly, obeying only when senior officers were present. They claimed confusion. They claimed mixed signals. Traffic jam worsened during her shifts, and complaints increased. Alero's superiors called her in for questioning. She explained calmly, showing her notes, her records, her consistency. Some listened, some nodded without interest, while some were hell-bent on removing her from her position. One afternoon, a video surfaced online. It showed Alero stopping a bus and speaking firmly to the driver. The clip ended before her explanation. Before her calm tone softened the moment, the caption painted her as proud, drunk on power. The comments were harsh. These police people here, especially the women, they always like to show authority anywhere. People who had never stood on that road judged her freely. She watched the video once and turned off her phone. Mama Rose noticed the change first. She pressed a sachet of water into Alero's hand and told her softly that storms did not last forever. Musa returned with granuts after weeks of absence, saying nothing but placing them in her palm. These small gestures reminded Alero that not everyone believed the lies. Still, the weight was heavy. She questioned herself daily. Was she doing too much? Was kindness misunderstood? Was silence still strength? Each morning, she put on her uniform, adjusted her cap, and stepped back onto the road, even as smiles around her hid bitterness, waiting for the right moment to show their venoms of jealousy. The breaking point came on a day that started badly and ended worse. Rain fell without warning, turning the road into a slippery mirror. Traffic built up fast. Horns clashed and patience ran thin. Alero stood firm in the rain, uniform damp, boots heavy, hands steady. She had managed worse days before, but this one carried a strange tension she could not explain. A luxury car ignored her signal and forced its way through. Alero stopped it calmly, rain dripping from her cap. Inside was a young man with sharp eyes and impatience written all over his face. He argued loudly, accusing her of delaying him on purpose. Passerbys slowed down to watch. Phones came out. Cameras began clicking. Alero explained the situation clearly, pointing to the gridlock ahead. The man laughed and called her names that stung. She warned him once, yet he continued. She followed procedure and ordered the car to be parked. Within minutes, another video was recorded, this time from a closer angle. Voices rose. Someone shouted that she was enjoying her power. The man made a call, stepping aside dramatically. Less than 30 minutes later, a senior officer arrived, his face tight with annoyance. Alero explained again, but the mood had shifted. The man claimed harassment. The crowd murmured. The rain did not help. By evening, Alero was ordered to step away from road duty, pending review. The words sounded unreal. She handed over her reflective vest quietly and walked away while traffic continued behind her, loud and uncaring. That walk felt longer than any road she had controlled. People she passed pretended not to see her. Some whispered, some watched openly. Days turned into weeks. Alero stayed home more than she ever had. The noise of the city faded, replaced by silence that felt too loud. Her phone buzzed less. Some friends stopped calling. Online comments grew crueler. The earlier video had found new life, joined by the rainy day clip. Together, they painted a story she did not recognize. She thought of quitting. The thought came softly at first, then louder each night. She asked herself if the road was worth the pain. She remembered her grandmother's voice again, reminding her that storms tested roots, not leaves. Still, doubt stayed heavy on her chest. Time passed, an internal review dragged on. No one called her for advice. No one asked for her notes. She felt invincible. She visited her village briefly, sitting under familiar trees, listening to elders talk about patience. There, nobody cared about videos or titles. They only asked if she was well. She realized how tired she had been. Back in the city, something unexpected happened. Traffic accidents increased at her former junction. Arguments broke out daily. Drivers complained openly. Musa was involved in a minor crash. Mama Rosie's store was damaged during a fight. People began to ask questions. They compared before and after. They remembered calm. Chinedu gathered courage and spoke up at the park, telling drivers the truth about rumors and stage confusion. Others joined them. Records Alero kept quietly were requested. Her notes matched CCTV footage. The rainy day incident was reviewed fully, not in clips but in context. Months after, she was pulled off the road. Alero received a call. It was brief and formal. She was cleared. More than that, she was asked to return, not to traffic duty, but to help train other police officers. She sat quietly at the call end, hands shaking, tears falling without sound. She hugged her Bible close to her chest and thanked God for victory at last. When she returned to the junction, There was no ceremony, just recognition. Drivers slowed willingly. Conductors greeted loudly again. Mama Rose hugged her instantly. The road looked the same, but Alero was not. She stood taller, calmer, knowing that now her silence had carried her through the storm. Alero did not return to the road the same way she left it. This time, she arrived before sunrise, when the city was still stretching itself awake. The air was cool, the road quiet, and for the first time in months, she stood at the junction without noise pressing into her ears. She closed her eyes briefly and breathed. It felt like greeting an old friend after a long misunderstanding. Words spread quickly. Drivers slowed even before seeing her clearly. Some parked just to greet her properly. Conductors shouted her name with joy. The old mama returning like it never left. Alero smiled. But there was something new in it now. It was not just warmth, it was understanding. She had seen how fast respect could turn and how slow truth sometimes moved. That knowledge settled her spirit. Her role had changed. She still controlled traffic, but she was also asked to mentor younger officers. They watched her closely, expecting lectures. She gave none. Instead, she showed them how to stand, how to look drivers in the eye without challenge, how to correct without crushing pride. She told them quietly that authority without empathy broke people, and empathy without rules broke systems. They listened because she spoke from scars, not theory. The drivers who once resisted her were careful now. Some avoided her eyes, ashamed. Others apologized openly. Alero accepted apologies without replying the past. She did not take revenge. Growth had done enough. One afternoon, the same luxury car driver who caused her suspension passed through the junction again. This time, he stopped properly. He greeted her respectfully and thanked her for doing her job well. She nodded and waved him on. Her heart felt lighter than she expected. Something else had changed too. Alero started community road talks, standing at motor parks during quiet hours. She spoke about safety, respect, and shared responsibility. Drivers asked questions freely. Conductors shared stories. Mistakes were admitted openly. The road became a classroom and learning flowed both ways. At the next state event, Alero was invited again, not to receive awards, but to honestly talk about failing, about being misunderstood, and about patience. She reminded the youth that integrity might slow you down, but it would not abandon you. The applause that followed felt deeper. It felt earned. As evening settled, Alero returned to her junction, watching the city move smoothly again. She felt peace. The village had taught her patience. The city had tested it. Standing between both worlds, she understood now that strength was not in rising fast, but in rising true and showcasing genuine character. If this story touched you like the video, don't be afraid to smash that subscribe button. Share it with your friends and drop your thoughts in the comments. Till next time.